Michael. Hi, welcome to a very special episode of The Unusual Suspects. It is October 1st, which means it is the 8th anniversary of the worst mass shooting in United States history that no one seems to talk about. Today, we're going to do a deep dive. Thank you to Connor for doing a tremendous amount of work for you guys to try and bring you up to speed on all of the abnormalities that took place October 1st of 2017 at the Mandalay Bay. It was the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival. According to the official narrative, and this is the official narrative, on the night of October 1st, 2017, 64-year-old Stephen Paddock opened fire for about 10 minutes on concertgoers at the Route 91 Harvest Country Music Festival from two adjoining suites on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Casino and Hotel in Las Vegas. According to the official narrative, Stephen Paddock then killed himself before officers breached his room. The attack remains one of the deadliest mass shootings in United States history. 60 victims, 58 died prior to 2020. However, 2 have since died after 2020, later succumbing to their injuries. We had over 800 injuries during that shooting. Between 1,000 and 1,100 rounds were discharged using rifles, many fitted with bump stocks, and authorities recovered more than 23 different firearms from Stephen Paddock's room. According to the official narrative, Stephen Paddock was a lone wolf. He acted by himself. There were no co-conspirators. There was no second shooter. Paddock legally acquired the large arsenal that he used on October 1st over time and equipped multiple rifles with bump stocks, allowing sustained rapid fire from a fixed sniper-style position into a densely packed venue across the boulevard. The motive, still to this day, more than 8 years later, is unknown. There is no single clear motive for the attack, but today we're going to do a deep dive into the official narrative and why the official narrative, like many of these, doesn't make sense. You look at the narratives, I mean, guys, and joining me, by the way, Connor, our producer, Humberto, and Brandon. All of these guys are on Manect. Everybody is on social media. Go find them. But most importantly, go find them on Manect if there's any insight that you may have, not only into this deep dive, but any other deep dives that you would like to see us do in the future. The goal is to do one of these a month. Every month there's something going on. Last month we did 9/11. This month we're doing October, the anniversary of the Las Vegas shooting. November we can do JFK. December there's got to be something, Pearl Harbor. After all, they called 9/11 the new Pearl Harbor. There's ties between the two. So if there are any deep dives that you'd like to see us do here on this podcast, feel free to reach any of the panelists on Manect. Their links are going to be in the description of today's episode. But most importantly, Connor, the guy that puts this together, if there's anything that you want to send his way, do it so on Manect. Connor, I'm going to hand this over to you because you've done such a great job of putting together the presentation. I could tell you the first slide, if we're jumping in, is about Coop. And this is the guy that actually turned me on.
Whoa. Finish that sentence.
No, I paused for dramatic effect. Coop turned me on to the Las Vegas shooting. Now, look, it's never made sense. For the past 8 years, everybody has looked at this and gone, well, it's really weird that one guy with no motive would fire below on 1,100 people, considering there were reports that Mohammed bin Salman was in Las Vegas at the time. There are reports that there was an arms dealing gone wrong. But the reason why we're doing this episode today is because of this guy right here, Coop. He put together a podcast. It's a 3-part investigative series. If this is not enough Las Vegas mass shooting info for you, then go watch Coop's 3-part episode. We'll include the link in today's description, and we'll put it in the chat as well. He did a great job. It's a 3-part series, 40 minutes a pop, so it's in total like an hour and a half of watching, but it's well worth your time to go and watch it. But we're going to try and summarize what Coop did in an hour and a half to 2 hours into an hour and a half episode right here. And Connor, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you so much for the work that you put in.
Yeah, and I'll hand that thanks right on to guys like Coop and the various other independent content creators and researchers who have, kept this fire going for the last 8 years, because we would not know half of what we do if there hadn't been people archiving things. There's been a cleanup process going on this since the day it happened. News headlines, video clips, everything is getting stripped off the internet. It's submerged, it's hidden. But guys like Coop and other people like him who do that kind of work are unsung heroes of the independent media space. So hats off to him and the other guys like him who contributed to this process.
And it's the beauty of the internet and YouTube and social media that we can even do this. One of the things I say to people on Connect all the time, I come from a background of radio. I did 20 years on the radio. In radio, you had regional reach. You were in the biggest city and you broadcast to the surrounding towns. If you were lucky, which I was lucky enough to be part of several syndicated nationally radio shows, you would be in a few markets, but not everywhere. But with the advent of the internet, with YouTube, with social media, we now have a global worldwide reach. And what that opens up is the opportunity for other investigative journalists to do deep dives on their own time with their own money for as long as they want, go down as many rabbit holes. Maybe they'll come to, hey, you know what? The official narrative is what they told us, and that is actually what actually happened here. But it allows people the ability to go do those deep dives. So big shout out to Coop and big shout out to Connor for putting this together.
To that?
Absolutely.
Like, this kid came out of nowhere. Brandon and I were watching together. We're like, oh my God, can you believe this? Like, I've seen documentaries, like big, full feature funded documentaries by big organizations, and they don't even get close. This kid can put a story together.
Yeah, he's got a talent. He started off with Epstein. He did the best Zorro Ranch episode I've seen.
1000%.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff from Zorro Ranch never heard of. And he did some stuff on the Charlie Kirk situation, like right off the bat, which was really good. So, yeah.
And especially when a channel of his size, it's grown now, but when I was watching the first videos on the Las Vegas shooting, he only had 100,000 subscribers. The videos were only getting 40 to 50,000 views. You're not able to monetize that. So in order for this guy to do it, he's not only sacrificing his time, but he's also sacrificing the ability to make money by putting this content out. Now the channel's growing. He's monetizing a little bit more. But this is a passion project. This isn't something he was doing for money. So again, shout out to him. It sounds like the Cooper blowing show. We're all going to
let me show you something
He
quick.
deserves it.
Look at this. August 12th from Pat. So
this
Pat,
is worth watching.
Coop.
Oh, that's so cool.
Before
Pat
we even knew
text
about
you?
him.
I can't. I'm the executive producer. All right, but yeah, so
So it's a shout out. Like before we even knew about him, Pat. Like I guess technically Pat was the first one to stumble upon him.
yeah, but it's really well done. So go watch that. But turn it over, Connor. Go ahead. Let's get started on October 1st and the surrounding dates and what happened.
So, like you set up for us, we're going to start by revisiting the official narrative and what we have documented that they want us to know. So, like you said, October 1st at the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino, which is overlooking the Route 91 Harvest Festival, Jason Aldean is on stage performing a song, and shots start ringing out, allegedly from the 32nd floor of the hotel down into the gathered people below. We have some clips of that we'll go ahead and play, so you can see exactly what it was like in the moments when that chaos broke out.
God, he's continuing while it's going off. That's crazy. I've never seen that video before. That's insane.
So you can see the show was going on in full swing, and it was so loud most people couldn't even hear the shots, or they assumed it was pyrotechnics or just stuff in the area. Nobody was assuming that they were under fire until people started dropping, bullets started bouncing off of screens and tech equipment. In fact, Jason Aldean, in an interview with Tucker Carlson just a few months ago, I think, talked about how his bass player took a bullet in the guitar he was holding, which is weird, and we'll get into some of that.
Oh,
because,
perfect. The angle.
Yeah, because the angle of that shot doesn't make any sense for it to have come from the hotel, because the hotel was slightly back and to the left. No, it was slightly to the side. So a front-on shot into the guitar doesn't line up. But we have a few more clips of what it looked like when all the chaos broke out here.
Just following the timeline, were you going to bring up the girl who was warning people? Running
Yes,
around?
we'll get into some of that. This is what we officially know. So
that started at what time that evening? Does it say here?
The
That's
shots
9:50 before 9:59,
Yes.
because that's when Jesus Campos goes up to the bedroom.
Yes. So the shots initially, according to the established timeline, and we'll get into why the timeline doesn't make sense either, but the shots officially began around 10:05 p.m. and lasted until 10:15 p.m., at which point Stephen Paddock is alleged to have taken his own life in the hotel room prior to police breaching. So here's another shot of the chaos that was happening down at the concert.
Wow. you see the Mandalay Bay from...
So it's to the right in this video.
Wow, nobody's running.
It's got to be like a shock.
People still haven't quite figured, and you can see this far back in the crowd. That's the Mandalay Bay right there. So they're still, is it shots? Is it not shots?
Well, it stops. I thought it was continuous and continued throughout.
It picks back up, right?
There were several distinct bursts of sustained high rates of fire. But you can hear people screaming as they run here.
Now, does he fire again?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because that didn't sound like 1,000 rounds
No.
just there.
I counted 77.
And there.
Oh, okay, here it goes again.
Yep, there's more. You see now the other camera swiping the Mandalay Bay as they're running.
Yeah, where's the flash?
It's from the other arm of the hotel that's across the way. But now it's set in. It's set in. There's shots being fired. And I screened these videos just so you know. So we're not going to see dead bodies here, but just the screams.
That's more
and the
bullets
horrors.
now. Again, you can hear them in the background going off.
Nowhere to hide either.
Mm-hmm. So we can go ahead and cut that. I think we've got the point here. But you see, it was truly horrific. And some of the shots that were captured as people were running, over 800 injuries. Not all of those people were hit by bullets. Some of them were trampled by fleeing crowds. They had things knocked over onto them, hit by debris as people were sprinting. It was complete chaos. Nobody knew where the shots were coming from. But these shots ring out from 10:05 to 10:15, at which point we have the final volley. And then sometime between 10:17 and 10:18, officers arrive at the room where the shots are supposed to be coming from on the 32nd floor. The SWAT team breaches quite a bit later. It was almost an hour later, according to some of the timelines, that they fully breached the door, even though the shots had stopped.
Yeah.
And this is what we will continue discussing here. But they identified the suspect very quickly as Stephen Craig Paddock, and they said he acted alone. He went up to that room with dozens of firearms and thousands of rounds of ammunition over the course of a week, prepared for the shooting, eventually busted out the hurricane-proof windows with a hammer somehow, leaving no trace of the glass on the ground below, which doesn't, again, quite add up, and then stuck the barrel of the guns out the door, or out the window, and opened fire. And that is as much as we know. That is where things have been left.
Now, what do you make of, and then tell me if you can get into this, but all the different identifying factors of what Stephen Paddock looked like and what the corpse looked like, as far as like his eyes were blue in real life, the corpse's eyes were brown.
Mm-hmm.
He had the earlobes that were
Attached.
attached earlobes. The corpse had that. He did not have that. Then the corpse was 6'1", he was 6'4". So I mean,
and also the fact that there are apparently two distinct pools of blood beneath the head of the corpse. One that was slightly dried and crusted by the time the officer showed up, and one that seemed fresh, almost as if this guy had killed himself at a different time prior to the breach and prior to the shooting. But these are CCTV cameras that were captured. I believe Paddock was at the hotel. Yeah, he checked in between September 25th and September 28th is when he was registering and arriving at the hotel.
Now
He was bringing all these bags up in multiple trips. He would go back to his house, which was just outside Vegas, come back with more bags. Sometimes he would get help from bellhop. Sometimes he'd bring them up himself. But allegedly, all of those suitcases are filled with packed firearms and military-grade ammo cases.
Now, I'm not a bellhop by any means, but I would assume when you're used to dealing in luggage time after time after time, it's your job. 40 hours a week, you are dealing with people's luggage. I would assume that there'd be a difference in the luggage of somebody that's carrying clothes and the luggage of someone that's carrying firearms, specifically the weight, the sound.
I was gonna say
right,
that.
like, wouldn't the guns bang against each other in the bags
Brandon,
as you're moving them?
Have you guys ever carried like a firearm,
Yeah.
bag or a duffel bag?
Over
with a firearm?
5,000 rounds of ammunition in metal containers.
Like even
will
push-
clank and rattle like
Yeah.
your pockets are full of loose change.
And Rob,
Yeah.
even pushing the trolley will be difficult. Like I mean, a small duffel bag of ammo and guns when you go to the range.
Yeah.
Like it's probably like 60, 70 pounds. A small duffel bag.
Now, to be fair, general rule of thumb I've gathered from the hotel industry is you don't ask too many questions about the people staying there. And in Vegas, I'm sure that goes double.
High roller.
Yeah.
Yeah. According to reports, he was a high roller. The room was comped.
Yes.
So, okay, I could see why maybe you're not asking too many questions, but after the 5th duffel bag of things clanking together, you don't go to somebody and go, hey, that's weird. The guy that's always here by himself, that's got a 32-floor room that's overlooking the music festival, seems to be bringing up an excess amount of bags to his room for one guy.
Yeah.
Like, when you guys go away, when I travel, I'm one suitcase. I could be gone for a week. It's one suitcase. That's all I need.
If I have to upgrade to a suitcase from a backpack, I'm unhappy. But
So, I mean, it's just there's so many weird questions that weren't asked ahead of the shooting that maybe could have either defeated this narrative that they put out or could have prevented the shooting if Stephen
and
Paddock did it.
he had, I believe, by most counts, almost 18 to 20 bags that he brought up.
Yeah, nothing weird about that. A single man by himself with 18 different bags of luggage.
Either with bellhop's assistance on carts or bringing them up by himself. He was moving things in and out of this room for over a week, and allegedly left the weapons just strewn all over the place. He had them unpacked on the bed, he had them on the tables, he had them in the bathrooms, all over the suite. So you're telling me no housekeepers went into this room for an entire week? And of course you can put the do not disturb thing on there, but you would assume after a certain amount of time, your high rollers, you would have a housekeeping call, room service, somebody would spot him opening the door and see something on the bed. Nobody reported any of this.
And before we get into, like the actual narrative, like this guy, his name is Daniel Nass. He did like a whole graph of how much was reported on this, on the official narrative. And it's absolutely insane. In less than 15 days, imagine the biggest shooting in American history. In 15 days, it was gone from the news. 15 days. All right. And when it was at its peak, they measure all the sentences said on each program. They saw the major 5. It's CNN, CNBC, Fox Business, MSNBC, and Bloomberg. It was less than 1% of everything that they reported. Like, can you imagine that? Like, there's still shootings that we're talking about 6 months later, like minor ones. Like, everyone is a tragedy. But, like, they deleted this off the news cycle in less than 15 days.
No, I remember. Okay, so Columbine, I'm dating myself as to how old I am, but when Columbine happened, I was in 7th grade, and all I remember, there's a few moments in life where you're like, wow, it dominated the news cycle, right? For me, it was Princess Diana dying. I remember nonstop coverage of that. I remember my mom waking up to watch her funeral because like the Today Show covered it at like 4 a.m. because they were doing it in the United Kingdom. I remember 9/11, where the news cycle just became 9/11 for weeks. They were just showing it over and over and over again. Columbine was a similar situation. Every news platform covered that story for weeks. Now, that was one of the first major mass shootings in America at a school. They had happened before, but not to that level. But I've never seen a shooting to this level, this capacity. Something like this is a plot out of a movie. And for the mainstream media to move on after 2 weeks of news coverage is so odd, considering what are they known for? If it bleeds, it leads. That's the number one. So they love stuff like this. Why would they turn a blind eye to it and ignore it?
And we keep saying, this was the worst mass shooting in United States history. Not only that, it was the second biggest mass casualty event in United States history, second only to 9/11. So this isn't this tops all tragedies like this, like
accidents, plane accidents,
Oklahoma sitting,
mass casualty in terms of like bombings, shootings, terrorist acts.
And it never gets reverence either. Everybody says like, oh, this is the next 9/11, this is the next Pearl Harbor, but like nobody ever says like, oh, this is like the Vegas thing.
Yeah, and you would assume that a media that is obsessed with gun control, white violence, right-wing attackers, the narratives they try to push.
This fits all of them.
This would
Angry white loner with a bump stock on his gun, shooting from a casino that drove him mad because of the money he lost. It fits every narrative that they could put.
And what came of this? We'll touch on a little bit of that later. But the only lasting effect this had was the bump stock ban
that is being
that was overturned.
Yeah, it was
just
overturned.
earlier end of last year, I think. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So. What was the goal? You couldn't even call this a false flag because it didn't accomplish anything. They stopped talking about it as soon as they possibly could.
Or did it?
Well,
Precisely. That's if that was where we're going to leave it, we could just end the show here.
Or did it?
And that's the official narrative. We believe it. We're good to go. So here's a diagram of how this thing played out. The Mandalay Bay Hotel, I'll put my cursor right over where his room was. It's right about there. He was on the corner of the building. This is the festival ground, and I believe that is where the stage was set up.
Got it.
So he's shooting from this corner down into the crowd. For a bass player on the stage here to take a bullet from straight on in front of him would imply that the shots are coming from somewhere other than this hotel. You see, the angle is very weird, and with how far away it is, there's no guarantee you're even going to be able to hit anything at that range. I believe it's over 1,000 yards away. Like, that's some pretty significant range.
Now, I don't know
for something
much
like
about
this.
guns. I'd never fired one myself, to be honest with you. But would it be possible that the bullet could ricochet off of something and then lodge inside of a bass guitar? Is there any possibility
yes,
that could happen?
there is that possibility. Because especially at this range with weapons that are firing like automatic weapons, you're not guaranteed to. You're not up there picking your targets. You're not aiming at individual people. You're
It's
just
indiscriminate
you're firing
firing.
indiscriminately. So the best explanation for how some people got these odd bullet entry trajectories was ricochets or bullets hitting things or puncturing people and then making those turns.
Bullets do ricochet, and then it's a numbers thing. Like for every bullet, it's an instance. If you shoot 1,000 bullets, there's more chances of bullets ricocheting off things and going weird trajectories. And a good map that you brought, so people can visualize how far this is.
Yeah, because prior to watching Coop, I saw Coop put up a map of something similar to this. Prior to that, I was always under the assumption that the stage was facing the other way because the guy was shooting down. Because I've always heard the story about the bass guitar being hit, but I always assumed the stage was facing the opposite way, not actually having its back towards the Mandalay Bay, which, again, the physics or the logistics of it actually going into the bass guitar, that's hard.
And you can
to
see in those
imagine.
videos we played, there's people filming the stage, the shots break out, the camera pans up and to the right of the stage, which is where the hotel was. So that angle is a bit odd. But like I said, they concluded the investigation in 2018. They said, case closed, we're done looking into this, we're done asking questions. Stephen Paddock acted alone, had nothing that inspired him to do it. He just did it.
Didn't leave a note, didn't leave a video,
no notes,
nothing.
And no further questions need to be
And
asked.
that site has been turned into a parking lot.
Yeah. And here's a few photos of the guns he left strewn around. They're mostly either AR-15s, AR-10s, AK-47s. The AR-15s, most of them fitted with bump stocks. There's about 25 that they found, but you can see it's absolute chaos up there. But all these are the crime scene photos taken after the police have breached and done a full sweep of the building. And we'll touch a little bit on what it was they were doing while they were up there. But let's talk about one of the possible explanations for this. The idea that Stephen Paddock was not a lone wolf shooter who sat around a casino gambling away his life savings. He was, in fact, a fairly successful international arms trafficker. So, to begin with these discussions here, again, we'll revisit those crime scene photos of all the guns strewn around. That is not the average enthusiast's gun collection. I believe when they raided his properties, they found over 90 firearms combined across his houses, places he rented, and the hotel room. The average gun enthusiast is not going to have a collection quite like that. But who would have something like that is someone who is demoing products for sale to people that he, is calling up and having meetings with. So, the career history of this guy is really what makes this interesting. But first, I want to play this clip of bump stocks, because a lot of people have a misunderstanding about what it is that makes a bump stock function. Do you guys know anything about
Zero
those?
idea.
Okay. So,
For me.
So you know the difference between an automatic and semi-automatic weapon. Semi-automatic, one trigger pull, one bullet. Automatic, hold the trigger down, continuous stream of bullets until the magazine is empty. What a bump stock does is take a semi-automatic weapon and make it function like an automatic one. Ish. They're not always reliable, but a reasonably functional bump stock allows the weapon to slide back and forth against your shoulder within the stock, which basically makes it bounce against your finger. Makes it function like an automatic.
You're bumping the trigger.
You're bumping the trigger while holding your finger stationary. Here's a video of a guy demonstrating one, and you can see that the sound of the rate of fire coming out of this AR-15 does actually sound somewhat similar to what we heard at the Route 91 Harvest Festival.
Merry Christmas to me.
Now, the gun's smoking because of it's firing in such rapid succession. I've never fired a gun, but from what I've heard, when you do fire a gun, it can be a strain on your muscles. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, especially
There's
when
kickback.
it's automatic or high rate of fire like that.
Stephen Paddock didn't look like he was in the best shape. Do you guys find it unrealistic or realistic, I guess, that a guy of his age and shape is able to fire off 1,100 rounds without fatiguing?
I certainly find it questionable because to keep up that rate of fire for that long with any sort of accuracy, because you see, as even this guy who appears to be some sort of trained shooter knows how he's handling the gun, the longer you hold down that trigger, the higher up the barrel gets.
So you're actually fighting against the opposite of gravity because it's going up. So you're trying to arm it and hold it down.
The recoil wants to pull you back and send the barrel up. You have to force it down.
Okay.
So a guy of Stephen Paddock's age and shape, it's questionable whether he could have sustained that. And then to be able to accurately hit people from that far away, again, would require a very advanced level of marksmanship.
That's the thing. Like, I don't want to be that guy, but some of these guys had been around firearms for a long time. They have a lot of muscle memory on them.
Okay.
Like, firing a bump stock is not easy. Like, for example, it's funny that he says, Merry Christmas to me. So he probably bought the bump stock and it was showing off for the video. And you can tell he's not very skilled with it, but there's some guys on the internet that are really good with the bump stock.
Yeah. So let's first take a look, now that we've established the bump stocks and the oddities about some of the guns. The claim that Stephen Paddock made $5 million gambling at these casinos. This is where it's a little bit tricky because you can't win $5 million off a Vegas casino. It's essentially impossible with how these are set up to negate their losses. And they did the math, and for this to have been possible requires losing more than $5 million for the payout of $5 million. But he was a known high roller at several casinos where he'd show up and he'd get rooms comped, he'd get free drinks, he'd get all kinds of service because he spent so much money there. For someone who doesn't really seem to have much of an employment history and no explanation for where he made his money, this doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you are an international arms trafficker who has made a bunch of money, millions upon millions of dollars from illicit weapons sales, and you are trying to launder that money into your account, this makes perfect sense. You take all your gun money to a Vegas casino, you convert it into chips or different tokens for games. You play the games, and then whatever money you lose, that's just the cost of doing business. You get that money paid back out. The machines he was known to use at the Mandalay Bay specifically have different reporting standards for what's required to be reported to the IRS. And that means that under a certain amount, you don't have to make a full report. So the money comes back to him. And if he loses a few $100,000 on it, who cares? He's getting the payout of his own money brought back to him.
But now it looks like it's legal money.
Now it's just inexplicable casino winnings that is hard stopped against the machine he won it off of.
Gotcha.
So the IRS cannot trace him. But let's look at his career history, because this is what makes it really suspicious. Here's a Fox News report from that time. Las Vegas shooter Stephen Paddock had government jobs and bought 33 weapons last year. This was, of course, written just days after the shooting. Investigators pieced together 64-year-old Stephen Paddock's life and found that he worked for the Internal Revenue Service and as an auditor for defense contracts. But Paddock apparently started his government service via a far more humble route, working 2 years as a letter carrier for the U.S. Postal Service from 1976 to 1978. That appears to overlap with his time at Cal State Northridge, from which he graduated in 1977. And goes on to say Paddock was
so as a
an
college
auditor.
student, he's working as a postal service employee.
Yes.
But we're now about the post office.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's as government as it gets.
Yeah, especially
That's
those
the original
times.
CIA. Don't mess with
and
the post office.
They used to call. Okay, so it does fit the narrative. Remember, the term "going postal" came from in the early '90s, late '80s. There were rashes of postal workers shooting up the post offices that they worked at. So it's nothing new that a postal employee goes nuts. The difference is this guy also worked for the CIA after working for the post office.
Yes.
Newman said.
And one of the companies
Mail
he
keeps
worked
coming,
for,
it never stops.
one of the companies he worked for was a defense contractor that went on to become the predecessor of Lockheed Martin. It was one of the groups that was merged together to form the current company we know as Lockheed. And what makes this so suspicious is Stephen Paddock's family background. Because who was Stephen Paddock's father? If we can put this up, Stephen Paddock's father, Benjamin Hoskins Paddock, was a notorious bank robber who was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list after escaping prison in 1968. He was on the run for almost a decade before he was caught. And anyone who has had a government job knows the rigorous background checks these people go through. We had to get extensively background checked to work here. And
did?
we don't do government stuff at all. I mean,
I
maybe
believe I passed that.
yeah, exactly. So if people like Rob are questionable and setting off background checks, how does a guy get secure clearance at defense contractors when his father is a known bank robber who was on the FBI's most wanted list? That should have set off all kinds of flags.
I think that's how they like him going.
No, what year was his dad on the run from?
He escaped prison in 1968, and I believe he was on the run until 78.
1968. And when did Stephen Paddock start working for the government? He started as a postal employee in
76 and worked there till 78.
And then where'd he go after that?
He was an IRS agent from 78 to 84, and then from 84 to 85 was working with defense contractors.
So you could chalk up 76 to 78-ish as, okay, well, maybe the postal office, it doesn't matter that much, your background, whatever, you're carrying letters, who cares? But when it gets to IRS and he was working as an auditor
Yes.
for the IRS, I would think that, like you said, there's a different set of background checks that you have to go through. How in the world are they hiring someone whose father is currently on the run? How does think about this? That'd be like if someone stole money from the company that we work for. And then their brother came and worked for the company that we worked for while we were in the process of suing the person that stole money from us. We wouldn't hire that person. If the federal government is looking for your father and he's one of the most wanted men in the world, in the United States, you're going to hire that guy's son?
Even if
no questions asked?
Even if the son did nothing wrong, it still sets off enough red flags to where you assume the government would not want any part of it. But as it turns out,
I bet the IRS loved it. A bank robber, they're running the same
government
line.
might have wanted a lot of Stephen Paddock because this was a thing. And again, credit to Coop for flagging this because I had never seen this before. This was flashed on screen briefly during a local news broadcast talking about letters that were received that were addressed to Stephen Paddock and recovered at his residences. One of them was this one, addressed to a guy named Jim Nixon, who appears to be an ex-con that Stephen Paddock was friends with. The person who wrote it, Albert Stockton, it's a little bit unclear who this guy is right now. But in the letter, it says, "Please note I've been working with Mr. Paddock for the past several years, and I believe he will be the ideal accountant investor for your business. Steve has a unique accounting practice, and he is very professional, not to mention honest. 15 years with the CIA. He is funny and will keep you happy as long as you are his client." So this was first disclosed by being flashed very briefly on screen. But this is a letter that allegedly was found within Stephen Paddock's documents, in which an associate says this guy worked for the CIA for 15 years.
Do we have a date on that letter by any chance? It'd be very interesting. What I'm trying to figure out is if the timeline of Stephen Paddock working for the CIA overlaps with the timeline that the government was trying to find his father.
Yeah, because 1985.
Is that a date on top? Like
Yes, March 19th, 2014. If I'm reading that correctly.
2014.
Yeah,
So
March.
if it's saying, okay, he previously worked for the CIA for the last 15 years, then that would take you back to what, 89?
Yes. So in 85, he is working.
No, I'm sorry, 99.
No, in 85, he works for a defense contractor, the one that becomes Lockheed Martin.
Okay.
And then his employment history just drops off the radar, and we have no idea what this guy spent the next 30 years doing. But somehow, in that 30-year period, he became a multimillionaire who took elaborate cruises, often to the Middle East, and was a high roller at multiple Vegas casinos. Where did this guy get his money from? and no one has been able to give us a concrete answer about
Well,
that.
defense contractor in '85 makes you think of Iran Contra, and that's what Epstein and Khashoggi were all involved in. And then
Adnan Khashoggi,
Yes.
the father of Jamal Khashoggi,
uncle,
Who got
I think.
murdered.
Yeah.
who was butchered inside of the consulate. Was it in Turkey? Where they chopped him up, put his body into a suitcase, and then wheeled him out.
sent
shortly
the video.
after this, right?
And it's no coincidence that took place because the Saudis have their fingerprints all over this entire situation. We will touch on that shortly. But guys, what level of credibility do you give to the idea that Stephen Paddock was in that hotel for a weapons deal based on what we've discussed? Where are your minds right
Leaning
now?
more towards that than the guy just was angry at country music fans and decided to open fire and just kill indiscriminately.
I mean, the problem is that the guy on the corpse doesn't appear to be Stephen Paddock's, and the crime scene looks like it was set up to look like a crime scene. Like, it's almost kind of silly how it was set up. Like, why is there guns just like sitting on bar stools and like laid out all over the place? And
It's like if you took a box of guns and just
Threw 'em.
dumped them.
Yeah.
And then the type of guns, like if you see, you look at the pictures, like a gun enthusiast wouldn't use those guns. Like they will probably bring something fancier. They seem like, I mean, in my thinking after watching all this and reading about it, I'm leaning towards the arms deal, all right? Because that's the type of bulk guns that you will sell. Maybe I don't know.
And if you're unconvinced, how about
But why not
some
go
of
to like a
this?
freaking like a moving container or something, like those pods where you do storage?
What do you
or
think?
something?
It's a movie, Brandon?
I'm thinking he's a smart guy if he's gotten along all this. Like, why would you do it in that inefficient of a way where you have to bring up all these bags and like that doesn't seem like a smart place to do an arms
Well,
deal.
nobody caught him until he started shooting.
It's kind of an open secret that Las Vegas is like one of the leading destinations for illegal weapons trafficking around the world.
Right,
Like,
but-
people fly into Vegas and they meet in hotels and they negotiate weapons deals. They don't often have, heavy ordnance in the hotel room with them, but people go there to negotiate these things off the books all the time.
It's not just weapons dealings. Not that I have any experience with this, but one of the Uber drivers, when I was in Vegas the last time for work, was telling me about the amount of people that are sex trafficked through Las Vegas specifically. It's a hub for all of this, for weapons, for drugs, and for human victims.
No,
Well,
it turns
how it
out the place
started.
calls itself Sin City and prostitution is legal. Who'd have thunk that
Bad things would happen.
all the worst things happen in Las
Well, it was
Vegas?
literally built by international crime syndicates. Like, Vegas was built by the original Italian and Jewish mafias. Like they used
With union money.
Yeah, with the Union Pension Fund that built Vegas. So it was like a way to build money laundering facilities for their dirty money.
Yeah.
And what we think? Do we think just like good corporate people took it over at some point?
And the money laundering thing is a classic. Like it's the most popular way to launder your money.
The only thing more popular would be like a coin laundry.
Yeah,
essentially.
coin laundry or like an Asian massage.
Yeah,
like
but
in
the
Better Call
volume
Saul.
you could do at a casino
Yeah.
versus a laundromat.
I guarantee you, if you were to cut out the money laundering proceeds from Vegas casinos, they'd be bankrupt in a year.
Yeah, well, the government. Remember, like they said in 2008, that drug money was the thing that kept the economy afloat when the banks crashed.
Yeah, what are we thinking? These places are held aloft by boomers on penny slots. Like that's not how this works.
It's window
They're
dressing.
failing though. They're
Yeah,
failing.
yeah. Vegas is dying, and honestly,
I'm gonna miss
perhaps
it.
good riddance. But if you're unconvinced still that Stephen Paddock might have had more going on than just a guy who happened to be some kind of gun enthusiast, how about this? Unsealed FBI warrants show Paddock emailing about trying AR-15s and, quote, for a thrill, trying a bump stock AR with an 8 or 100 round magazine. That sounds more like marketing than it does some guy who's talking to himself. When they said, oh, he might have been emailing himself from different accounts. Who sends themselves an email about trying a bump stock for a thrill? That's how you market to clients. Then at the same time, after the shooting, ammonium nitrate and a significant amount of tannerite, both of which are explosives, were found in his car and in various properties, which means he was handling explosive ordnance, not just hobbyist guns. So this guy might have been, trafficking in more than just rifles.
All right, so the question becomes, if you bring all of that stuff, you're going to conduct the worst mass shooting in United States history. You bring supplies to build a bomb. You have all of the time in the world because you've been in the hotel for 5+ days. Why didn't he use the bomb-making components found inside of his vehicle to construct a bomb and set it off? Wouldn't there, Unless you're there to sell it to somebody else, why would you be bringing weaponry that you don't plan on using for this deadly attack?
Also, why would you load up with over 500 or like 5,000 rounds of ammunition, but then off yourself after getting off 1,000? Like he had enough loaded weapons to make an even bigger death toll. He could have kept going. He killed himself before the police even breached the door.
But question, do you think that's Paddock, though? Do you think that was Paddock?
No, I think all of these signs indicate that this guy was here to sell things and brought demos of his products to show people in the hotel rooms, probably had some explosives there for the same thing, and then this shooting kicked off around it.
But was that body Paddock, do you think?
I am unsure. I tried to look at some of the corpse photos, but honestly...
There's very few,
There's very few, and honestly, after recent events, there's only so much of corpses with half their heads blown off that I'm actually in the mood to stomach during a work day.
Yep.
But I'm willing to do that for all of you watching at home. Thank you for the nightmares. But there's certainly those things about the corpse that are odd.
Well, because it's
I
like,
agree.
Paddock seemed like he was part of the network, like part of the network that does these things. So, like, why would they make somebody that's their own be a patsy?
Mm-hmm.
And, the corpse would indicate that wasn't him. So, did he start the process of an arms deal and then they put somebody else in there and they just used his identity as the person? And then, like, what was actually accomplished by doing this? Like, if it was a false flag, like, what is the thing that was accomplished? Like, who benefited from it? And, like, there is some stuff about some things that are trying to be pushed through. I don't want to, jump ahead too much, but, do you feel like you have a good sense of what was accomplished for a certain, like, person or group?
I believe so. I believe that we're all kind of on the same page about that, and we will reveal that in an upcoming segment. But first, we got to get through the events of the actual shooting, and I want to talk about this guy right here. Jesus Campos, who was a security guard, allegedly, at the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino. So, what do we know about Jesus Campos? This is a photo of him on staff just a short time before the shooting took place. Allegedly, this guy was the one who responded to a call of a jammed door on the 32nd floor. He shows up, and he was shot in the calf by Stephen Paddock. Now, this is the police body cam footage of Jesus Campos. Do you see blood or a bullet wound anywhere on that guy's leg?
No, in fact, he's wearing shorts.
Well, yeah, he's got one pant leg rolled up. So you can see his other leg back there has the pants down.
Okay, so why would you roll the pant leg up unless you were showing a wound or something?
Where is the bullet hole in that guy's leg that would suggest...
Especially that it's not a handgun rounds, these are rifle rounds. Like, if you get a rifle round to the knee, that's not how it's... Like, I'm not an expert. I haven't seen enough knees getting shattered. But we've been watching rifle rounds with all the Charlie Kirk thing. I've been watching all the videos of how much damage they make. That doesn't look like a rifle round to the knee at all.
And would he just be standing there casually, rolling up his pants? If
Yeah.
it was?
Yeah.
No, I'd be screaming, I was shot! Somebody help! And this guy's just like, oh, yeah, I got
Look at this thing.
little grazed here.
Another point against Campos' story is that he claims he was shot in the leg at 9:59. And as we established at the top, the shooting began at 10:05. So he claims he was shot. He then ran, got the police. The police were in the process of responding. The shooting broke out. And he helped them identify where it was coming from.
Did he ever say that he was shot by Stephen Paddock, or did he just say that he was shot?
He said he was shot on the 32nd floor while responding to claims or reports that the door was jammed. He went up there to investigate. A shot rang out through the door and took him in the leg.
Oh, so he didn't see the actual person.
He did not identify Stephen Paddock as the shooter in his initial statements.
Hold on. So Paddock is in his room. This guy goes up because there's an alarm going off because Paddock had, for some reason, jarred open an emergency door or an exit door for the hotel. So Paddock shoots through the door without looking at the guy and hits the guy in the leg.
According to what Jesus Campos told everybody, yes.
Does that seem suspicious to any of you
Very.
guys? That blindly shooting through the door and he ends up hitting his target.
Yeah, so
and not only hits his target, but
I have the report here. On October 1st at 9:59, he told Las Vegas Metropolitan PD that Campos was sent to check door alarms and found an L bracket on a stairwell door. And while he was investigating, was shot in the calf near room 32 or 32135, which is where Stephen Paddock allegedly was. He radioed or used his phone and warned building engineer Stephen Shuck to take cover. and claims then that he led the police to where Paddock was firing from. But what happened to Jesus Campos after this is very, very odd, because his story, and this is a recurring theme that we'll see, the stories and timelines these people, excuse me, stories and timelines these people gave us keep changing. They changed constantly over those weeks leading up to it. So let's see here. I'm trying to find it in my extensive note packet that I'm reading off of.
Yeah, it's a labyrinth.
Yeah. So the police officials said the official shooting time was adjusted to 10:05. We'll get into who actually adjusted that timeline in a second. That contradicts the initial statement that Jesus Campos said he got shot at 10:18, which was after Stephen Paddock was dead. So in order for them to fit the timeline, Jesus Campos changed his story to he was shot at 9:59, not 10:18, because they said the shooting went from 10:05 to 10:15. So his initial statement was that he was shot after the guy was said to have been dead.
So instead, they come up with a narrative that he shot before the shooting starts.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, what the hell?
No, guys.
The government.
To be fair, if you're allegedly shot on like in the knee, like time, it works differently.
No, but there's cameras with timestamps.
Yeah.
So it wasn't his own report.
No, he reported initially that it was 10:18.
Okay, he could have been
but
wrong.
He could have been wrong.
Right,
but then all of the timelines get adjusted, and suddenly it lines up. And then this was a report from one of the outlets at the time. At first, Campos, a guard at the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino, was hailed as a hero for helping guide police to gunman Stephen Paddock's room on the 32nd floor. Police say Campos was shot in the leg at the end of Paddock's assault on concertgoers, so that would have put it closer to 10:15 when they said Paddock shot himself. And they say that Campos potentially distracted the gunman and caused him to panic and kill himself. So this is why the police weren't at the scene yet.
But if he gave a warning, like you said, he radioed, used his phone, and warned building engineer Stephen Schuck to take cover after he was shot, then there is a timestamp somewhere in there. There's got to be a way to track that down. Because it's not our job to do that, but I would think that would be the job of the federal government to go, okay, well, you made a call on your radio. What time did that radio call take place? Let's take a look at the logs.
Well, investigators, including Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo, revised the timeline.
The current governor
Yes.
of Nevada
And said
now.
the Campos had actually been shot around 9:59 p.m., a full 6 minutes before the mass shooting began at 10:05, which means the guard could have instead led Paddock to start opening fire on the crowd for fear of being caught. So even back then, they were alleging that this guy's mixed up timelines. He might not be a hero. He might have spooked the shooter and gotten him to start opening fire sooner, thinking
now
he'd been
it's
discovered.
Campos or Jesus Campos' fault.
Now, that's a juicy reward for a sheriff to become the governor. You have to get some powerful friends to make that happen.
we will talk about what Joe Lombardo had going on at that time.
You don't hear
and then
that every
later
day,
on.
sheriff to governor.
Yeah, but Jesus Campos gets shot, the investigation begins, and he disappears for at least 2 weeks. Nobody knows where he went. The union that he worked for said they couldn't find him, said it was very unusual.
Yeah, it says October 12th through the 13th, Campos cancels multiple TV interviews. Even his union can't find him temporarily. Now, is that the time where he allegedly traveled to Mexico?
Yes. So he had multiple interviews lined up, including allegedly with Sean Hannity. But he canceled all of those interviews. And then it said that right after being shot in the leg, he drove hundreds of miles to go visit family in Mexico for a few days and then came back. Instead of flying, he drove. And
I gotta imagine if you're shot in the leg with and even just a minor gun, not even the weaponry that you're looking at that Stephen Paddock had access to, if you're shot like that, are you really wanting to be in a car ride for hundreds of miles and hours on end to and from Mexico of all places?
Even in perfect health, that's not pleasant.
Yeah, going to Mexico is not pleasant, period. We could just end it there. I can't imagine, I'm shot in the leg. Let me go to see my family and have churros in Mexico.
Why'd it be churros?
They're Mexican.
Okay.
It's a Mexican dessert.
I think they're Spanish.
So, okay,
well,
how ignorant.
Nice, Rob.
fun additional story there.
I'm the asshole.
Years ago, I was in Mexico on a missions trip with church, And we have all the girls in the van that are with us that, the girls that are on the trip. And they're saying, like, we got to stop and get churros. We got to stop and get churros somewhere. We're in the middle of, like, freaking nowhere in Mexico. And they're like, we got to get churros. So we stop and they find some guy who's, like, by a car on the side of the road. I'm like, hey, is there a place where we can get churros around here?
Like a cartel member putting a body away.
Cartel.
Well, he's like, oh, actually, yeah, we're in a small little city. He's like, yeah, go around the corner. There's a place there. And we keep driving, and it's that point that our van driver informs us, you realize that churros are slang for joints down here, right? Like, you just asked a random guy where you can go get marijuana in Mexico. Needless to say, we did not get either weed or churros. And the trip was far less interesting than it would have been if we'd had both. But when Jesus Campos finally reemerged from Mexico, he did one interview.
Now, you would think that would be with some type of hard-hitting news journalist. After all, this is the deadliest mass shooting in United States history. This is a huge story. So,
and
obviously,
he's being heralded as a hero at this point.
ABC, maybe 60 Minutes, CBS, like you said, Fox, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity. You would think that would be the interview that he goes and does. But what's the interview that Jesus Campos does?
He talks to Ellen DeGeneres.
Now, I don't know if you guys know Ellen, not exactly known for her hard-hitting journalism. If anything, she's known for having weird imagery on her set that looks oddly familiar. Specifically, if you look at that top photo of her set, does that look like a pyramid that you guys have ever seen on a famous sex traffickers island, specifically the white and blue lines?
Blue and light stripes and palm trees. Where have I seen that before, I wonder?
Interesting.
This is the point that tipped me over to knowing that something's
This
wrong.
interview itself.
Yeah.
So up until this point, when all
I was
this
like,
is going,
maybe, yeah. Like, we didn't know about the security guard or anything. But why is he going on Ellen? Like, and is this after Ellen showed her true colors?
No, this was well before Ellen was canceled. She was still beloved by the media generally at this point.
Thing.
And so Ellen, who is a quasi-comedian, like her show is fluff and pop culture, sits down for the one and only interview that Jesus Campos ever does about this.
with a handler. Who's the guy?
That guy is allegedly the guy he radioed, Stephen Schuck.
Okay.
He's a building engineer at the Mandalay Bay. They were in communication allegedly at the time of the shooting. So you can see in this photo, she's got diagrams of the hotel room. They're going over everything that happened, and Ellen makes sure to clarify in this clip that I couldn't find for this because it's, hard to actually get segments from this show here.
Yeah.
She's talking about how, I get that this is so difficult for you. I get that you won't want to talk about this again after this whole thing.
Yeah, I remember very specifically there was a line where she goes, "This is the one and only interview you're going to do about this, and then you're never going to talk about it again."
Yeah.
What? I'm going to go on the show of the girl who makes people feel good on TV middays during the afternoon and never talk about the story again? Okay. That's so odd. It's odd for her to say that, and it's odd for him to be on that show.
And what was weird is that, again, with that body cam footage we saw, it didn't look like Jesus Campos had a gunshot wound to the leg. He came on walking with a cane. It looked like during his few days in Mexico, he had put on almost 100 pounds. So, like, there's some people out there saying that's not even the same guy.
Mexico will do that to you.
Yeah, it's weird.
Now the question is, Connor, by why? Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Why Ellen? Out of all places.
There might be one explanation for that. According to this Daily Mail headline generated just after that, Mandalay Bay owner insisted security guard Jesus Campos appear only on Ellen and not be grilled by TV hard hitters, fearing his answer to the timeline questions could result in massive lawsuits from victims of the massacre.
Which
Connor, first of all, such good research that you have done for this episode. This is amazing, the information that you're finding, because these are articles that have been lost to the Ethernet. They're gone. Nobody's going to find them again.
But what's crazy?
Sorry.
What is crazy is that it's not even that hard. Like I'm not digging through lost web archives. I'm searching Jesus Campos Ellen, and this is the first thing that comes up.
I take back my compliment.
I appreciate your compliment, but this is my point. Like I'm connecting dots here and trying to create a narrative and a story around this. But this is all right here in our faces. It is not hard to see what is happening.
Question, forgive me if you're about to get to this, but which owners are talking about?
Yeah, so the people who own the Mandalay Bay is MGM.
Does it rhyme with Schmadelson?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it might explain a bit why MGM was so interested in having Ellen be the one to do this. Because, and this is a thing that Coop pointed out in his documentary series. Again, I highly recommend you watch that for a very concise reference video on that. Ellen had just recently entered into a partnership with some various MGM casinos to have this line of branded slot machines, two different games built around her.
Okay.
The exact details of how much she was paid for this partnership have not been disclosed, but she was in partnership with MGM at this time.
So you'll hear a lot when it comes to the people who are skeptical about the Las Vegas shooting. They'll say that the reason Hector Campos, or Jesus Campos, I keep calling him Hector for some reason, Jesus Campos went on Ellen's show was because Ellen was bought and paid for by Mandalay Bay, MGM. But nobody ever really explains what that means. When you hear people say Ellen is owned by MGM, this is what it means. They had a licensing deal with her through the slot machines that were bringing, I can't even imagine what the licensing deal would be for Ellen at that point. Because you got to remember, this isn't the Ellen of 2025 that we're talking about. This is the Ellen of 2017. At that point, she was still America's sweetheart. There weren't the rumors of bullying on set. People weren't coming out. She hadn't left the country because of Trump or whatever at that point. She wasn't disgraced. This was somebody that everybody across the country
She brought the
watched.
apparently kid.
She was the white Oprah. What did you say?
She brought the apparently kid. I love that kid.
She brought who?
The apparently kid.
I don't know who that is.
It's,
but-
it's a clip of a kid at a state fair talking about, apparently it was a viral
Okay,
thing.
but this girl at that time was one of the highest people. Like, when you think of American culture, she was one of the things you thought
Ellen.
about. She was daytime talk, so moms are at home watching her. So this licensing deal must have been worth tens of millions of dollars, because you're not going to get Ellen to put her name on something and not pay her a shit ton of money for it in 2017. 2025, different story. But not 8 years ago.
So if you don't want Sean Hannity asking hard questions about a guy that you were trying to prop up as some kind of hero to cement your narrative, you get him to cancel those interviews. You have him disappear for a while. He goes on Ellen, and that is the single disclosure we have. But what happened to Jesus Campos after this interview?
It's been 8 years.
Yeah. So what we have is documented evidence that MGM has been paying for this guy's hotel stays and security for a very long time, and allegedly part of a payoff. After his name went public in connection to the shooting, he didn't stay at his house. He stayed at MGM properties and apparently entered into all sorts of NDAs and received financial payoffs as compensation for the shooting. Mandalay Bay ended up having to pay out a large settlement to victims of the shooting anyway. I believe it was somewhere to the tune of like $400 million. Even though they weren't responsible for it, it happened on their property, and this was all the weird stuff going on with lawsuits that they seem to have been afraid of when they made him go on Ellen anyway. They didn't want him to name names or disclose information, so they went for him for a softball interview to try to avoid lawsuits, and they had to pay out probably far less than they would have if he'd sat down with Hannity.
Was he the guy? That's the other thing.
Was he the shooter?
No. Was he the security guard?
Yeah, and this again it's much more fringe than what we've been talking about. There are people who say that the Jesus Campos in that body cam footage is not the same Jesus Campos that was on Ellen. It's not the same guy who has been apparently in hiding and under an NDA ever since.
And these allegations of MGM buying his silence come directly from family members of Jesus Campos. His former brother-in-law, Luis Castro, claims that MGM bought his silence through NDA, perks, condos, trips, etc. These claims have not been corroborated by independent mainstream reporting, so they're unverified, other than coming from the guy's former brother-in-law. So maybe he's got an axe to grind because he divorced Jesus Campos' sister or whatever the case may be. But that's coming from, it couldn't come any closer than somebody related to the guy that did it.
Certainly not. But, I mean, what do you guys think? What's Jesus Campos' role in all this?
Confusing, to say the least.
Very similar to George Zinn, if you will. George Zinn acting as a distraction. Hey, look over here. Well, all of this is happening over here. It feels like it's the same thing. We prop up a story of a guy who's a hero instead of actually paying attention to the victims, the people that, the lives that were lost, the people that were impacted. What do we focus on? We focus on the heroic nature of Jesus Campos, how he jumped into action and helped save countless lives by being shot and then warning authorities. That's the narrative that they give you now.
I agree. He was a escape valve. You know, there was all this pressure building up, and then they just opened this kid like he's a hero. Let's have him on Ellen. You know.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
And they even frame it as such that how could you question his story? Not only is he a hero, he's a gunshot survivor. He is a victim of mass violence in America. The gun violence that we have here in this country, this guy survived it. So you can't even discredit him, because if you discredit him, now you're attacking a victim.
Yeah.
Which I thought they were going to do with Trump. Honestly, after Trump got shot in the ear in Butler, I'm like, how could you ever take shots at the guy again? Because when it comes to school shootings, you cannot talk about certain things, right? Look at what happened to Alex Jones with Sandy Hook. Started going down the rabbit hole of whether or not Sandy Hook actually happened. Look what happened. Got sued into the billions of dollars. So there was this narrative. You can't question mass shootings, because if you there's repercussions.
You can't criticize the victims of mass shootings. Like it is generally frowned upon to call David Hogg a smarmy little twink.
Yes,
but because he's a victim of gun violence.
I thought the same thing would apply to Trump, but for some reason it made the left double down even worse. He's even more Hitler now.
Or Kirk. People are celebrating it.
Yeah. Well, as it turns out, the interference they'll run for victims of gun violence only goes one way, as does political violence in the United States. But speaking of questioning those narratives and the timelines people have established, let's look at the person who actually did the timeline changes. Joe Lombardo, who was at that point the sheriff of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and was, by all accounts, like a kind of a local celebrity. You know how we have those in Florida as well?
Yeah,
Grady Judd, people like that. Like the hard-on crime, traditional-looking Republican sheriff guy. This was Lombardo's whole thing. Yeah. So Joe Lombardo, in the days after the shooting, changed the timeline multiple times, which is what forced Jesus Campos to change his timeline for the shooting. As we established, Jesus Campos initially said he was shot at 10:18. The problem was the police timeline said the shooting was over by 10:15. So now Jesus Campos moved his timeline to actually was shot at 9:59. Joe Lombardo was the one setting that narrative.
Do you know that Lombardo was born in Japan?
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Okay.
Like a random thought generator.
And what involvement did the Japanese have in this whole thing? I wonder?
Well, they were bought by APAC. No, just kidding. Go ahead. Sorry.
The JPAC.
Ooh.
Japanese pack.
Yeah.
That's what that's.
Yeah, I know.
J for
Japanese have a lobby organization. Let's see.
Well, we send a ton of money to Japan every year, but they don't do anything to our
Appreciate it,
government in
yeah.
response. But anyway, back to Joe Lombardo. So Lombardo changed the timeline repeatedly during the days after the shooting to sync with MGM's public position protecting the resort from liability. The times were altered. The police response time seems to have been slowed down a little bit. He stonewalled public records, tried to charge the press exorbitant fees, and slow-rolled the release of body cam footage and 911 audio to allegedly hide mistakes.
For a very
good reasons. Lombardo has, of course, denied all of this. He said he found it highly offensive that there were any claims of incompetence or mishandling of this investigation.
The way you shut down a narrative is
Of
that
course.
how dare
offensive.
you talk about this? There were victims.
And the claim goes that key body cam evidence is missing or inactive at crucial moments, with possible police officials, including Lombardo himself, even ordering officers to turn off their body cams while responding to the Mandalay Bay Hotel. That part is unverified according to the official sources, and they really want you to know it's unverified.
But a lot of phones were definitively taken by the FBI and not returned, right?
Yeah, they rounded up cell phone footage just like they did after 9/11 with camcorders and any other cameras. Some of them were returned, some of them were not. And
the ones that were returned were wiped.
It's dismissed often by the bureaucratic churn of these slow-moving investigations. Same thing with the Zapruder film from the Kennedy assassination.
The missing frames.
The missing frames, and
then somehow they found and put back in, apparently.
Sometimes when you get these things back, you can't always trust what it is you've been given.
like SD cards from cameras that may or may not have been taken out of the UVU campus after Charlie Kirk was shot. It's weird how the government
camera.
the guy caught by multiple people on camera, and then when we question it, it's you guys think Israel did it, didn't you? No, we're just asking where did the SD cards?
Somebody shot Charlie, but won't someone think of the cameras? I need to protect these SD cards from chaos.
Do you see the video? He leaps on top of the table.
And does like a police slide, like
Police
across
slide,
a car.
grabs the SD card, and then
Like this is the #1 priority in the world.
Yeah.
boy, like
Well, that's a topic for another episode because I don't know. We might be
But it's the same.
canceled
I
after
think
that
the
one.
same crew applies, like
Yeah.
in terms of the same cleanup crew.
And it's the same bureaucratic process on the
Same
back end.
same
anyway.
SOP, same standard
Look,
operating
all
procedure.
the camera footage of these big, high-profile murders, assassinations, mass tragedies. It's rounded up. It's held for years with no explanation, no disclosure, and then suddenly you get a sanitized version back on the end.
Like, it's as simple as this. Like, when you can't give answers to easy questions, you can't give simple answers to simple questions, then you know something's wrong. And that's always the case with all these things.
So let's walk quickly through what Lombardo did with the timeline here. So you can see here's Fox News Chiron saying it's going to take up to 5 days to assess the crime scene, and I believe it ended up taking even longer than that.
least
we
they had a crime scene.
The concert venue's now in a parking lot, and the hotel quickly patched everything up.
Now, did they start doing construction?
Unlike
of the
UVU,
concert?
they didn't
right away. They hadn't even removed Charlie Kirk's body from the scene, and they're like, "Hey, you know what? Now's a good time for landscaping overhaul.
We're stripping
it's
up the
crazy.
sod."
Yeah,
Yeah, like even the grass needs to go.
you know that Vinny really called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe him.
Yeah, guys, if you didn't watch the PBD podcast this morning, Vinny was telling a story today about how he actually called UVU, pretending to be, I don't know who he said he was, but he was asking, was this construction pre-scheduled? And I believe they stonewalled him.
A media.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, you know, maybe we can help Vinny conduct better media sting operations down the line, because that's not going to get you very far. But like I said, it's very odd that they wiped this whole thing as quickly as they did, certainly in the case of Charlie Kirk. But back to Lombardo's timeline. On October 13th, 2017, Lombardo announced second significant adjustment to the shooting timeline, said Metro's new version reflected MGM information. So that's investigators and law enforcement taking their cues from MGM and the hotel management, which is odd. Why is this company getting to set the timeline? Wouldn't it be the other way around? Of if the hotel says something, they have to check it against what the police are saying. Odd. He now agreed that Jesus Campos was hit around 10:05 p.m. as the crowd was fired upon, not 9:59 as was previously stated. So this is the existing timeline.
Yeah.
Now Jesus Campos says 10:59. They say 10:05 right as the shooting started. When initially Jesus Campos said it was 10:18 when the shooting was already over. So the jumble thing, or the jumbling of timelines and details here,
Like, that's a
remains
simple
so
question.
chaotic.
That's a simple question. When did it happen? You can't answer that. Something's weird.
Yeah, we have what, like a 22-minute window in which this guy could have been shot, and no one can say when it happened. There's no clock on the wall. There's no timestamp security footage. This is a Las Vegas hotel and casino.
Right.
There is a camera everywhere.
Yeah.
Like the only place you're probably likely to get more cameras than there is Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
But for some reason, there's no security camera footage anywhere that shows this happening.
Similar
I'm
to
at a
how
loss.
there was missing videos that were confiscated by the FBI and the CIA following the 9/11 attacks. There was 80-something surveillance cameras reported in the area that filmed the plane hitting the Pentagon that were confiscated. And for some reason, here we are 24 years later, and they still cannot release that footage to us because it's deemed against the interests of national security.
Most secure building on the planet, and we have 2 frames
Wouldn't
that show a definite alleged confirmed plane.
Las Vegas, Nevada is number 9 on the list with the place of the most security cameras.
Vegas.
Yeah.
So
right.
what's above it on the list then?
Number 1.
Jeffrey Epstein's house. Come on.
Number 1, Jeffrey Epstein's house. No, number 1, Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah,
Number 2,
a lot of shit goes down
Washington.
there. That's weird. Though.
Then Philadelphia, San Francisco, Denver, Chicago.
Those are like all the worst cities in the.
Well, I guess it would explain why they have so many
Albuquerque.
cameras then.
But it's per population.
Yeah. So
Right.
security cameras per capita. So here is Joe Lombardo at the time talking about the status of the investigation.
I cannot give you an accurate number at this point. We have well in the excess of 100 plus injured and excess of 20 plus that have died at this point. So we will get those numbers to you accurately as soon as we can. But please bear with us. This is an ongoing investigation, but we are comfortable that the primary aggressor in this event has expired or passed away and is no longer a threat. There's been multiple phone calls and accusations or conjecture coming through social media that there's multiple shooters at other resorts. That has been proven to be false. Additionally, there's been accusations or beliefs there's some explosives going off. That is also false. The only explosive contained in this event was from our SWAT team breaching the room. So please, we are pretty confident that there is no longer a threat other than we are attempting to locate the person of interest. No, not at this point. We believe it's a local individual. He resides here locally. I'm not at liberty to give you his place of residence yet because it's an ongoing investigation. We don't know what his belief system was at this time.
So even back then, setting up no motive, no known ideologies, nothing that would indicate he was any kind of terrorist or had any motive to do this whatsoever. And years later, Joe Lombardo goes on to become the governor of the state of Nevada.
I mean, he was between elections, so he became sheriff, and then this was between his second term as sheriff. All right, and then I was looking up like how people there felt about Lombardo, and at the beginning, you know, the whole hero thing, and then there was a lot of criticism, and despite the criticism, he managed to lock in the second sheriff term.
Yeah. So let's talk about what Lombardo was doing with the officers, because I said...
What?
Sorry.
Jeez.
So I just asked ChatGPT. I said, how many sheriffs have become governors in the United States over the last 10 years? I could only reliably identify one person in the last 10 years. Let's do the last 20. And that's Joe Lombardo, the last 20 years. I just want to see how rare it is that a sheriff goes from sheriff to straight governor.
Yeah.
Now, if it goes sheriff to mayor of the town, then to governor, got it. That's at least an ascension into the governorship. But to go straight from sheriff to governor, that's a crazy leap. And it looks like he's the only person in the last 10 years. ChatGPT is running very slow, but it's thinking for the last 20. I'll let you know what I get.
Yeah.
Think of how to spin that one.
Regardless, we shouldn't talk too much shit about this guy because we might be going there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do business in Vegas, so we don't want to burn our...
No, he's a great governor.
Too bad. Hey, you know what? He's a Republican. No enemies to the right.
Well,
guys.
okay.
Rob, you're still getting framed, Rob.
All right, so this doesn't help. Over the past 20 years, only 2 sheriffs have become U.S. governors, Mike Parsons in Missouri and Joe Lombardo in Nevada. Those are the only 2 since 2005.
I bet something weird happened with Parsons, too.
Yeah.
But now, Sheriff, what's his name?
Lombardo?
Grady Judge.
Grady Judd, yeah.
If he went for governor, he will get it.
2 seconds, yeah.
2 seconds.
And who knows? There might be weird stuff with Grady Judd, too. There hasn't been...
No.
I know there's
Don't
all sorts
ruin
of...
that for
dare
us.
you.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of claims again. Okay, leftist claims who hate the fact that he's tough on crime, but
I'm sure there are.
even so.
Rob, you're going to get framed when you go to Vegas.
That's fine. They're going to find me with churros from Mexico, and I'm going to end up getting raped.
Yeah. So let's look at what Sheriff Lombardo was doing with the officers, because allegedly he had told responding officers to not have their body cams turned on. Now, the claim that people respond to that with is that the first officer to breach the suite, Sergeant Levi Hancock, did not have his body cam activated at the moment of entry. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department later clarified he turned it on minutes after realizing it was off. But during the initial breach, there was only one body cam that was active. It captured this interaction between the officers in the room.
Check right here. We are facing north. Just confirming that is you guys that's in the broken window that faces the left floor. We are facing the left floor. We do not have a broken window. Okay, copy. It looks like you might have another room that has a broken window that also faces the left floor off that north end. There's a little bit of movement, not knowing if it's going to be the curtains or not. I'm going to be working to get a better eye on it. Check right here. We are facing north. We are facing north. Just confirming that is you guys. That's in the broken window that faces the left floor. We are facing the left floor. We do not have a broken window.
So I looped that last bit there so you could see during
So
the
what the hell
during the
is
initial
that?
breach, they said we do not have a broken window. The entire case of it being Stephen Paddock firing from that room hinges on the windows of that room being broken out with a hammer.
Otherwise, how do you shoot down to the crowd below
Yeah.
if the window is intact?
But of course, how do you get through a hurricane-proof window with a hammer that's about yay big?
I assumed he shot through it.
Me too. That's
Yeah.
what I thought for this whole time. Do you have in here, as far as timeline is concerned, about the shooting that somebody heard earlier that afternoon?
Yes.
Okay, we don't have to get to
I
that
do
now.
have some. Well, I have that in our next segment, and if you'd
But
like to
can
move
we
on,
harp on
Humberto,
this a
go
little
ahead.
bit? Can
Yeah,
we harp
yeah,
on this?
yeah.
Like, no broken window.
But that guy sounds like he's looking at a broken window. Like it sounds like the guy in the radio is like looking at a broken window with people in it,
Yeah.
saying just to confirm this is you, right?
Yeah, there's another
So what's he
room
looking
where you
at?
have a broken window, but if they're in the main suite, the broken window should be immediately visible according to the angle from which she shot at. So if there's no broken window, what are they looking at? What
Right.
room are they in?
Right.
And
And
then
what's the people on the ground looking at?
then,
Like, what
th- then when all the media arrived on scene, and by the next day they had exterior shots of the hotel, there's 2 broken windows on the 32nd floor.
right.
It makes no
But
sense.
the only thing we have from inside the room that night, the only guy whose body cam was on, is saying we don't have a broken window. So
That's
where
bizarre.
were they? What was dispatch looking at? And if there are no broken windows at that point, where were the gunshots coming from?
So it can't possibly be the same room that Paddock was firing from if Paddock is indeed the shooter, because the windows weren't broken out. So maybe they're at a different room?
So they got
Well,
the
did the
wrong-
shooting happen in a different place than the crime scene was staged? Because that crime scene was like clearly staged.
That's
to be
a strong
crime scene.
statement, Brandon.
A strong stagement.
A statement
What?
that it was staged.
The crime scene?
Yeah, allegedly.
It couldn't be
Let's-
more
Let's
staged.
throw it allegedly in there.
I can't.
What do you mean you can't?
Because the guy's eyes and height and face were different than the actual guy's features.
So you're 100% on this.
Well, I mean, tell me how it could be different if the
How
guy has
does it
different color eyes.
allegedly? Like, it doesn't hurt anybody.
If you're going to lay out all your guns to carry out
No pun
a mass,
intended.
yeah, to lay out a mass shooting, or
Yeah.
like you're, because again, what they try to tell you is that rather than having one gun that he was firing from and constantly reloading, he just had 20 to 30 firearms loaded up, ready to go. He was shooting till one magazine ran out, then picking up another one, even though there's no gaps in the shooting that would indicate swapping guns. It's consistent rates of fire, then long pauses, then more consistent fire. Wouldn't you have the guns staged in a way that makes sense, like one next to the other, like some sort of system? Not here's a pile of guns
Scattered.
over on the counter, here's a pile of guns on the bed, magazines and ammo thrown all over the room. It does not make any sense
No.
that someone who's going to try to pull this off would do it in such a disorganized fashion.
Exactly.
So if it wasn't Stephen Paddock, who was it? That is our next question. Well, let's get into the claims of multiple shooters present at the concert, including some down in the concert venue itself.
Yes.
So, start off the evening. Before any of this happened, before the show even started, there's a woman who runs to the front of the venue and starts screaming at the crowd, "You're all going to effing die tonight." And she does this repeatedly before security grabs her and escorts her out, chalking it up to her being an insane person. But was she onto something?
Yeah.
Clearly, she had to have been. Did she know something? Was she involved? Nobody knows who this woman was. Nobody
never heard from her again.
Never heard from her again.
And yet, this isn't the first time that I've heard this story. I've heard this story of "you're all going to fucking die tonight" for years, from like days after the shooting, as people were speaking out, and because people were
I mean,
posting.
look at the date on this article. Monday, October 2nd.
So literally the
27th,
next day.
The next day.
So you would think if this woman has been talked about for 8 years, never once stepped forward, nobody ever comes forward and says, "Hey, I know the woman that was going around telling people they're going to die that day." Has Connor, in your investigative work, did you come up with a name, anything on this mysterious woman?
No.
Huh.
There's no arrest records. There's no reports of this woman being taken anywhere. It's just a crazy woman shows up at a concert, starts threatening people, and is escorted out by security.
So
and that is where that issue ends.
These are reports from people that were at the venue.
Yes.
All right, no security report, nothing.
There doesn't seem to be an official documentation of an actual incident report being filed, but what was going on that night? Because now let's look at this, that NPR has a record of FBI call logs. Joe Lombardo alluded to this during our last portion, where he's talking about claims of shootings at other hotels, other casinos, there being more shots going on. He was saying that was all false. Well, NPR said the channel became flooded with reports of shots fired in no fewer than a half dozen casinos across the Las Vegas Strip. These reports would be knocked down one by one as strike teams deployed to each location and found no such thing. These places include the New York, and Tropicana, and they dispatched teams to investigate. They said, there's nothing here. But in each one, they said, this may be a diversion. So there are reports, including after Stephen Paddock was allegedly dead at 10:18. They said there's still more shots up and down the strip. Yeah. Multiple 911 calls sound like automatic weapon fire at other nearby casinos down the length of the Las Vegas Strip. And they're saying, no, these are, we're getting our wires crossed of reports from the same shooting. And granted, it is very hard to tell in a dense urban environment where a gunshot is coming from. They tend to, the sound bounces off of buildings, so it can be hard to place. But you're not going to hear gunshots that sound close to you when you're all the way at the other end of the strip.
Yeah.
That's not how this works. So clearly, either there were false reports to divide police attention and try to create panic, or there was actual gunfire going on at these locations.
Did you bring the video?
I don't have the video of these 911 call logs because that's one of the things that's been pretty aggressively archived.
No. The video of policemen reporting the gunshots.
Yeah, so those videos exist. I just don't have those.
All right.
With us because
there's a compilation of them like hearing.
They're hard to get a hold of, but the other place gunshots might have been coming from is helicopters. Mm-hmm. There are allegations that there are multiple choppers that were orbiting the Mandalay Bay Hotel with transponders and safety lights turned off. But if we look at this clip here, it seems as though you are seeing not blinking indicator lights, but rather muzzle flashes from what could be helicopters. See those blinking lights?
Yep.
If those are helicopters, either with mounted weaponry or small arms or long arms fire coming from the doors, it would look a lot like that. And they were hovering in the area with no transponder signals.
I was so unbelievably certain that it was coming from the helicopter because it was so close. And I remember thinking, why is it that close? Oh my God, I think the shooting is coming from the helicopter.
Yeah. So we can stop that there. That's an eyewitness reporting that she observed gunshots coming from a helicopter. And like I said, the transponder data seems to indicate that there were either tourist choppers, sightseeing things in the area, but then they all drop off the radar right around the time the shooting starts, which doesn't add up.
Wouldn't there be flight records? So if they were helicopters, and there were helicopters in the area, we saw this with when Diddy got indicted.
Yeah.
For tracking the radar, the tracking of his plane when the plane left the United States for some odd reason. I wonder, are helicopters also tracked the same way by the FAA? And if so,
yes,
where are the flight logs for that night? Were there helicopters in the area? Because there's witnesses that see it. You have video that looks to be helicopters. If the FAA came out and said, yes, there were helicopters in the area, okay, what were they doing there? If they come out and say no, you have even more questions.
Yeah. And it would seem to indicate that people saw something on the ground there. And it wasn't just mass panic. It's like they know they're being shot at by a helicopter. They know there's sound and gunshots coming from places other than the hotel. So why aren't they being allowed to say that?
Now, this takes the whole thing to another level, all right? Because a gun deal gone wrong, okay, we messed up. Let's get this guy near a window. Let's start shooting down, and then we make the whole mass shooting thing. But having helicopters with shooters organized, this is bigger. Like not everyone can put that together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would take it to. This is like a government level.
Yeah, how much credit do you? Because this is big. Mm-hmm.
And for all the digging I've done into this over the years, this time around was the first time I've heard the helicopter claims. I'd never gotten that far down before. But then, like, revisit that video we just played. What is that? What are you seeing floating in the air there with things that look like muzzle flash right over the concert venue during the time of the shooting?
I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you either.
So get this. So this is from a guy that was on the Redacted show that was deep into this, and he says that when the FAA was requested for the flight data about when the radar went off, it was rejected by a guy named Michael Artist, who also was the guy who would not give the flight record for the tracking of Flight 93 on 9/11.
Yeah.
So they have someone in at the FAA.
They have these fixers in all these different departments.
Basically, the same guy was handling like the flights that on 9/11 and the flights that went off the radar on in the Las Vegas shooting. Michael Artist.
Yeah, there wasn't a good place to slot this in as a whole segment, so this is a perfect time to bring it up. John Pelletier, the police incident commissioner who helped supervise this, who was then later moved to Maui just in time to be the police commissioner for the fires in 2023.
Is he running Hawaii now?
Yeah, like what's going on with all these people who keep popping up during different crisis situations?
If you prove loyalty to the company, you know.
It would seem so. But let's talk about those witnesses that have all of these inconvenient memories and facts about the situation. Because there were a number of eyewitnesses, even victims who were there, people who were shot at, people who escaped the concert, who came out and their immediate feedback and everything they said was there were people on the ground at the venue shooting at us. There were multiple shooters. This did not come from the hotel. And several of them have wound up dead. Some of them very quickly after the shooting.
Yeah.
And one you could explain away, but there's too many of these to be a coincidence. So the most often cited one is this woman, Kimberly Sukamel. She wrote Facebook posts and told family members and media outlets there were multiple shooters. She died unexpectedly in her sleep on October 9th, 2017. Sheesh. So 8 days after the shooting.
And this is before people started dying unexpectedly or dying suddenly post-COVID.
Yes.
Right? I mean, this is 2017, so there was no, in my opinion, vaccine that was quietly killing massive amounts of people. This was something else. She just happened to die. Looks like a young, healthy girl just from that photo. Oftentimes you hear people in their mid-20s or early 30s just dying.
She was 28.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now, to be fair, because I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that any one of these cases was murder, foul play, whatever. I'm just presenting the facts as I have found them, and you can make whatever you will out of the aggregated information I'm presenting.
Anomalies.
Her grandmother, Julie Norton, told reporters that she had epilepsy and believed that stress lingering from the shooting triggered fatal seizures while she was asleep. No official cause of death was ever publicly released, but it said she went to bed, maybe had an epileptic fit, and it killed her.
Well, that can happen. My son's mother has epilepsy, and stress can bring on certain episodes where she'll have a seizure. But for it to be fatal, that's rare.
Yeah.
To my knowledge. And I've been I've been dealing with somebody that has epilepsy for almost 20 years. So you'd think that I would know more about fatal seizures, but it seems to be something that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it's odd for a otherwise healthy 28-year-old to just die. Now, of course, the extreme stress could have been a factor, but it's hard to say. But what's certainly much more shocking, and
when
certainly
did she die?
That was October 9th, 2017.
So 7 days later.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
What's much harder to attribute to natural causes is the case of 60-year-old John E. Beelman, who also survived the shooting. On October 4th, 2017, his house was visited by the FBI allegedly for an unconnected reason. They raided his home for nothing to do with Stephen Paddock or the Las Vegas shooting, allegedly. And then soon after that, the day after, he went out onto the front lawn, killed his adult disabled daughter who has Rett syndrome, which is a condition that makes it difficult for people to speak or move. Kills her, kills himself on the front lawn of his house.
Jeez.
Day after being visited by the FBI, which that was October 4th. The FBI visited October 3rd. He's in Fairport, New York. So murder-suicide on his front lawn 3 days after the shooting.
So he flew across the country from Vegas back to New York. FBI investigates him at his home, raids his home on the 3rd, 2 days after the shooting. And then on the 4th, he commits murder.
It's a
and
weird
then suicide.
And kills his daughter in the process.
It's a weird
as well.
series of events.
Yeah. A little bit harder to attribute that one to natural causes.
Like,
And
would they make him go crazy?
I have no idea, but he also seemed to have been under the impression that things were not as they were being presented about what had happened at the concert. He goes home, gets a visit from the FBI tied to nothing, and Snopes has fact-checked it and said, "Oh, the FBI warrants had nothing to do with the."
Then we can rest easy then.
Yeah, if Snopes says it, by all means,
Yeah.
we can definitely trust them. Or how about this guy, 52-year-old Roy McClellan? He was a survivor who was killed in a hit-and-run incident while hitchhiking. Reports say the suspect vehicle was located and charges were pending at the time in 2017. He was killed November 17th, 2017. Mainstream coverage treated it as a traffic crime under investigation, and no more was said about this ever. I could not find what became of the person responsible for the hit and run.
Do you know if there's a total amount of survivors from the shooting who mysteriously died?
The number usually hovers around 8 prominent cases that they can track, which leads us to probably one of the worst ones, which is Dennis and Lorraine Carver. They were 2 survivors who were killed in a single car crash. They, according to the official story, their car was headed out of their neighborhood. They crashed into the gate, and their daughter arrived on the scene just in time to watch both of her parents burn to death in a car they couldn't escape. And
You'd have to be
it was
going
an
at a
accident.
pretty high rate of speed for your car to burst into flame. I mean, it ran into the gate in their development, right?
Yes.
Does that not seem odd to anybody else?
How
I think
fast
you'd
are
have
you
to
going?
be traveling at a very high rate of speed in order for your vehicle to explode or catch fire upon impact.
Yeah, you don't see that from low speed collisions.
No, and there's not a lot of room in gated communities to go 90 miles an hour.
I've taken out a few gates in my life.
Never exploded though.
Never
I
exploded.
hit a guardrail in my Tesla, which are known to go into flames when they hit things. I was going 80, spun into a guardrail, hit the guardrail 3 times, walked away unscathed. But they're driving in their community, and their car just burst into flames after making contact with the gate.
And they were not killed on impact, apparently. They
What
died
a
in the
horrific
fire.
death. Oh, my God.
Yeah. So, again, they were survivors, and they seemed to be under the impression that things were not as they were being
So
represented.
what were these people saying? Were they saying something that was uniform or?
So Kimberly is the one who most prominently said multiple shooters. She posted about it on Facebook. She told family members. She had messages with friends about it. The other ones hadn't made quite so prominent statements, but things seemed to point to them at least communicating privately to family members similar problems.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's a Mandalay Bay employee who spoke to the press who vanished, and his social media seems to have been wiped in the ensuing years.
Nice.
There was a music attorney who was there who died of a seizure in his sleep, similar to how Kimberly Sukamel did. One thing after another just shows like it's not a grand cleaning of house. It's not all the victims dropping dead. There's just a few people that you can't explain away that many deaths in the days immediately after it.
So the question is, who benefits from what happened, and what could be the cause for doing that? And I know you mentioned one angle of it, but are you familiar with the body scanner angle?
No.
Oh, really?
Fill me in. What's that?
So, I mean, there's not like a heavy amount of info on this one, but it was alleged. The person who wrote this also died. There was like a 4chan post. I know it's not like a pillar of credibility, but supposedly Sheldon Adelson and Michael Chernoff, former DHS secretary, were poised to profit from a mandatory body scanning, act or law they were planning on pushing through after this happened. So they wanted to have like full body scanner technology to all the hotels to ensure safety or like not being able to bring in guns and stuff. So they backed off of it. after this happened because people started talking about it, but that's something that gets floated
Is that
around.
Sheldon Adelson is in Miriam Adelson?
Oh yeah, like as in Trump's biggest donor.
Yeah. So I mean that checks out. But
They own like all the casinos. I think MGM's just like their company's called the Sands. I think is MGM under the
No,
Sands?
I just looked them up a little bit ago. It was Vicky Properties is who owns the MGM Grand Mandalay Bay.
Oh,
Vicky Properties, which is run by the CEO of Vicky Properties, is Edward Pitniak. So I don't know who owns Vicky Properties, but I know the CEO.
I do have some information on that we can touch on in a minute. But first, I want to talk about who tried to take credit for this. Because did you know ISIS claimed credit for the shooting three times?
I know that because I found an interview with Stephen Paddock's brother in which they cite that ISIS had taken credit for the actual shooting.
Yeah. So, according to ISIS itself, they had recruited Paddock, he had converted to Islam, and he carried out the shooting as a glorious act of, defiance against Western degeneracy in the name of the global caliphate. They claimed it 3 separate times. First via the Amaq news agency, again the next day with additional details, and then finally in a weekly newsletter that they distribute, along with the headline, The Invasion of Las Vegas. So these were reports, again, October 2nd, the day after. There were already headlines coming out.
Bro,
about
even
ISIS
Osama bin Laden denied being behind 9/11 for a few months before he took credit. It may have even been a few years before he actually said, no, I did it.
That's just how long it took to persuade him.
Fine, I'll do it.
right, yeah, okay, you got me. But right away, day after, hey, we did this.
Yeah. But this is how it was covered by the media. Las Vegas shooting. ISIS claim of responsibility is sign of desperation. ISIS was on its back leg at that point. They were losing territory in Syria and various other places. And the media played it off as ISIS is lying. They're taking credit for a thing they didn't do to try to, make it look like they're still a global threat to be taken seriously. But I want to call attention to this, because this was the assessment of terrorism experts. On Monday, Amaq, the program news agency for ISIS, called Paddock a soldier of the caliphate and later published a more formal claim. But terrorism experts say this is likely ISIS's first false claim for an attack in the West.
So the very first time that they do it happens to be the biggest mass shooting.
So
in
ISIS
United States
had
history.
claimed credit for plenty of things, but it was all things they did. It was all things they verifiably did. But then they take credit for this, and suddenly, actually, it's their first false claim. Like, suddenly, ISIS has decided to not be truthful with us. But I agree that this theory doesn't necessarily hold up because Paddock does not match the profile of someone who does a shooting for ISIS. Some guy who's old, does not have any particular history of radicalization, no criminal history.
Work with the government.
Work with the government. Like, that's not an ISIS shooter. That's a false flag weapons dealer kind of guy.
What did his brother have to say about all this?
His various brothers, because he has 2 at least, I think.
Yes, one was arrested. So Bruce Paddock was the brother of Stephen Paddock that was arrested in October of 2017. Arrested in Los Angeles on felony child pornography charges.
I do have
in
all of that.
October.
We'll go ahead and jump to that.
Oh,
where-
okay. No.
I
Go
didn't-
back to where
No,
you're
but
at.
we'll
I
just,
didn't mean
we'll
to
just include it in
premature
this.
things.
Look, what was up with Paddock's brother? Well, he was busted for child porn. Rob, you have the information.
Yeah,
there. Read it.
600 images, including those of very young children. In May of 2018, the charges were dismissed by a judge. Prosecutors said they intended to refile the charges, but the case has not proceeded since.
So this falls right into like the same category, I think, as all the the witnesses dying randomly. It's like terrible things would happen to anybody who slightly deviated from the narrative.
Take a look at George Zinn. George Zinn yells at Charlie Kirk's assassination, shoot me, as he's getting drug away and his pants are falling down around his ankles. Then they take him to the police station. He says he's having a medical episode, so they move him to a hospital. At the hospital, they request to go through his phone, and then he, according to reports, admittedly told police, I don't want you going through my phone because I have child porn on there.
Jeez.
So it seems like this child porn on people's devices, and this is why Tucker Carlson has talked about openly on his show. He doesn't own a computer. He drives a truck truck from like 1985 because they are able to put this stuff on your devices. Not saying that this is what happened to Bruce Paddock, but this is Tucker saying that you have to be careful because there are ways for them to plant evidence on you. And what's the most heinous evidence to discredit a person? Sexual abuse towards children. And it's the one thing people won't look past.
Allegedly,
Brandon didn't pay his taxes. Who gives a shit?
Allegedly, he had all these images stored on the hard drive from a computer from like 1993, which doesn't make any sense. Like, how are you gonna have these whole terabytes of child porn stored away on a really, really old like Windows 93 computer?
The guy who tried to get Trump too, his brother Ryan Ralph.
Oh, his son was arrested on child porn, and
Yeah.
I have no details on where that case went.
Now, his other brother, Eric, I found this interview from WESH News. That's in Orlando. That's here. The guy actually lives here. We should try and track Eric Paddock down. This will. By the way, I'm not too. Let's all look at the camera real quick. Rob Gargiulo, I'm not suicidal.
I, Connor Walcott, am not suicidal.
Brandon?
Brandon, I'm not suicidal.
I like to live dangerously.
Okay, so according to Eric Paddock, he did an interview with WESH News. This is October 2nd of 2017, so the day after the shooting. In an interview with WESH News, Eric Paddock said the family has no reason, rhyme, or rationale for the shooting. They say that their brother did not have a criminal past or any group affiliation. Eric Paddock told the news outlet the day after the shooting, there's no affiliations, once again, that I know of. I mean, there's no affiliations. There's no church. There's no religion. There's no politics. There's no anything. So the family of this guy, and I get it, you don't want to... Like, I have brothers. You guys have... I've met your brother. I don't know...
I have a brother.
You have a brother, Humberto. Do you have siblings?
Yeah.
If one of your siblings committed an act like this, there's a part where I think you would want to deny the existence or the reality of it because that's not the person you were raised with. It's not the person that you love. That's not something that you would think that somebody of that relationship would do. So I get denying it. But to go, hey, the guy has no ties, there's no rationale, there's no reasoning. He liked to gamble. That was the only reason why he was in Vegas. He lived in Florida up until 2015, so Paddock was here. It's not like he was born and raised in Vegas. There's so many weird things that come from the family. The mom coming out and saying that she doesn't think that Stephen Paddock did it either. Like, I get it. Again, the family doesn't want to believe that someone they know and love could do this, but when there's no evidence to support that the guy did it other than the official narrative, and there's so many factors indicating that he didn't do it, or at least didn't do it alone, I kind of give more credence to the family members' complaints at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So do we have any concluding thoughts on that before we get into our final point to try to put a nice bow on this?
No, this will
right.
be exciting.
But before we go, I'm very slow as the internet is. The guy said good murder because I was like, it's 8 out of 22,000, and I did the math.
2,200, I think.
20
Or was it?
20.
How many people were in attendance at the?
in attendance.
Okay.
22,000 people. That's what I got.
All right.
Is that right?
I think so. Or that might be. It seems like a lot, but go for it.
Seems like it's a big parking lot.
I'm stepping all
stuck
over. I'm
here.
stepping all over your point here. Go for it.
Well, if I
You're trying to say 8's a small number of people to die randomly.
yeah, but it's actually because I did the math for a year, but if you narrow it down to a week and change, it's 2.4 times higher than the average.
Yeah, it's a statistical anomaly.
Yeah, it is. It is much higher than the average American.
Yeah.
Not just dying in weird ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. 22,000 people. You were right.
So it's 2.4 times higher for if you attended to die within a week. Very weird.
So weird statistical anomaly. We have been over all of the things pointing to Stephen Paddock being a weapons dealer. We have pointed to ISIS trying to take credit, the weird stuff about Paddock's background and family, the witnesses who are dropping dead. But what's the cover-up? That's the thing we haven't really gotten into.
Right.
What was this whole thing about? This is what Coop, the guy who did the documentary that inspired a lot of what we're talking about today, believes. This is what I've heard a lot of other people discuss before. This is what I now fully believe. And we will make this case.
Fully believe.
I am, with as much certainty as I can have on anything like this, I am now confident.
95.
85 to 90.
All right.
I would say
high.
with like a fair degree of confidence that this is what I believe took place. Let's discuss the Mohammed bin Salman angle to this entire thing.
Guess we're not getting him on the show.
Yeah, well, he wasn't going to come on the show anyway, but maybe we can get him on PBD to address the allegations. No. Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. According to the theory, MBS was in Las Vegas on October 1st, potentially for a weapons deal with Stephen Paddock. Or if he wasn't there for a weapons deal with Stephen Paddock was there for a weapons deal with someone else, and MBS happened to be in the area. He was either staying at or visiting the Tropicana, or he was staying at the Four Seasons, because I don't know if you knew this about the Mandalay Bay Hotel. The top 4 floors are owned by the Four Seasons. So that they run those 4 floors as an independent thing. They have a separate entrance, they have separate elevators. So that's like a very high level clientele that stays at the Four Seasons, obviously. This security camera footage was captured during the event of this guy in plain clothes, white t-shirt, black shorts, being escorted out by heavily armed security personnel during the time of the shooting. According to what people have assessed, that guy is Mohammed bin Salman.
Wow, he was dressed like that.
He's in plain clothes to try to escape attention, and not because obviously if he's walking around dressed in the robes and the head garb and everything, that's gonna call a lot of attention.
Yeah.
What people speculate is that this whole thing was an attempt to assassinate Mohammed bin Salman by factions within the Saudi government. There was something of an undisclosed civil war going on within the Saudi royal family at this time.
And Humberto, you might be able to attest this because you're more familiar with Saudi Arabia than the rest of us. But I'm for real. No, he is.
Yeah.
From the reports that I heard, because there were this also ties into Jamal Khashoggi and his murder, because reportedly Jamal Khashoggi was investigating this angle. Then he was lured into the Turkish consulate or embassy.
Which, bear in mind, Jamal Khashoggi was the nephew of a notorious weapons dealer,
Adnan
Adnan
had
Khashoggi,
the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, allegedly,
who
reportedly.
owned a yacht that Donald Trump bought
Yep.
for some reason, despite having never expressed an interest in boating.
So the reports are that MBS was targeted. He escaped the assassination attempt. Jamal Khashoggi was reporting on it. They lured him to the Turkish embassy. They killed him inside the Turkish embassy. They filmed him being killed, chopped up, and put in suitcases, and then wheeled out of the embassy. And then MBS showed that footage to whoever coordinated this hit against him and said, hey, they held him hostage for like $14 billion in a hotel room. And the whole reason was because MBS was more progressive than many of the members of the Saudi royal family, and therefore there were tensions among them.
This hinges on... Okay, well, go ahead.
All right.
I want to hear from you.
I'm gonna give you the beef on a nutshell.
Yes.
All right. So you had King Solomon. All right. He was the king of Saudi Arabia. His Highness King Solomon. He brought Saudi Arabia from the old world to the modern world. He did all the nation building, oil fields and cities and everything. Everyone loved King Solomon, right? King Solomon, he had a Minister of Interior, so like it's the highest office after the king.
Okay.
All right. And this guy, his name is Mohammed bin Nayef. All right. So he was said to be the next one in line. In a weird set of events, they moved Nayef from being the next in line. And then they push MBS, His Highness Mohammed bin Salman, to be the king. Now, there's a lot of beef going because MBS is more liberal than most Saudis. And during the last few years, we've seen horrific things take place, like letting women drive in Saudi. All accidents are up, by the way. So there was serious worldwide beef because you have all these guys. Like, if you guys ever been to London, there's full neighborhoods run by the Saudis. Like, so far, they have Saudi plates on their cars. When they bring their Ferraris, they don't even bother to put the British plates. So there was a worldwide, like, high-octane beef going on. So this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And in November of 2017, so a month after this took place, MBS conducted a purge of the Saudi royal family, arrested a lot of people on corruption charges, including one guy who is a relative of his who was... another one of his primary rivals in this undisclosed beef, Prince Alawid bin Talal, who is known to have associations with ISIS and potentially financially backing different insurgent groups. Who did I say owns and operates the top four floors?
Seasons.
The Four Seasons. Do you know who the two biggest controlling stakeholders in the Four Seasons are?
I don't.
It's Bill Gates in one of his business interests, but 23.75% of the partnership that owns the Four Seasons is owned by Prince Alawid bin Talal.
Oh, wow.
So the place where MBS was potentially staying, the top 4 floors of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino, are owned by the company that is owned by MBS's primary rival in the Saudi government.
Damn.
Right at the time where there is allegedly an assassination attempt conducted against him at that hotel.
Funny that you say that, because in the Muslim tradition, gambling is not allowed. It's banned. It's called haram. I think they call it masir. And it's not allowed in Saudi. It's not allowed in the Emirates. It's not allowed anywhere else. So it's funny that they own part of this this business.
Yeah, and wow, MBS really did take power like 2 months before he was named Crown Prince June 21st, 2017. So it was right after that.
Wow. I didn't know that. Wow.
No,
so
this
literally like 60, 90 days before he takes over.
This was in the middle of the tensions, like right in the middle of the tensions.
And when we talk about these kinds of things, we tend to forget how recently these things were put into place. When we talk about MBS, of course, it's MBS. He's the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. He's the guy. He's always been the guy. We have very short memories with these kinds of things. We forget, especially in other countries, how quickly these turnovers take place. So there's this power struggle playing out in Saudi Arabia. The guy who had just taken over comes to the United States either to do a weapons deal with Stephen Paddock or for any number of other reasons. And you have mass shooting, helicopters potentially with armed gunmen opening fire, reports of shots fired up and down the length of the Vegas Strip, heavily armed security guards that seem to be escorting MBS out of the casino. This looks like some kind of assassination attempt around a weapons deal gone wrong. You got the new ruler of Saudi Arabia, an unfamiliar territory, foreign country, staying in a hotel owned by one of his primary rivals. He comes back from this incident and implements a crackdown on the entire government, including against the guy who owns the hotel where he was allegedly staying, plus the Jamal Khashoggi stuff. I feel like it's all there, guys. Normally we don't draw conclusions about the conspiracies we discuss, but that seems really.
By the way, for the record, I need to correct myself. King Salman replaced His Highness King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. That was the king before that ruled from the 90s until 2015. Just to put it on record.
So it's kind of like a sloppy way to try to kill somebody, though, because so you have helicopters shooting at the building. You have a guy shooting outside of a window from a hotel room. Like, where's the precision in all that?
Why open fire into the crowd?
Now, Brandon, remember I asked you, like, helicopters, this turns the whole thing on its head. The Saudis would have a helicopter going around.
I know, but what?
So
you're aiming a helicopter at a floor in a building to try to kill them.
No, the thing is, you have MBS in the building. You 100% the Saudis will put helicopters around to, like, this is a king, Brandon.
I know, but I'm saying, how precise is that? Like, you're in a helicopter. The guy's on the top floor of the penthouse of a hotel. What are the odds of shooting a helicopter at it?
No, if the helicopters were potentially on MBS's side, those were his security people firing at shooters on the ground who fled into the concert to try to escape after attempting to kill him in the hotel.
Is one possible explanation either?
No, but
those are
government U.S. government helicopters.
The other explanation I've heard is that they were trying to get the security team to bring him out of the hotel to make it more easy to target him. So they created chaos outside by staging a mass shooting to try to, make there be a panic response. They flee outside. They then pursue them with automatic weapons up the length of the strip until they escape.
It's a disaster, though.
So I think it went wrong. So you have the highest.
Like they should have gotten some Mossad consulting, to be honest.
MBS, would you like this pager?
Exactly. Like, that was a precision attack. This is a shit show.
So you have MBS at the hotel, all right? the security measures, I've been around them. They're crazy. Like if you think Trump has crazy security measures, these guys have crazier. Because not only like wild lone gunman wants to kill them, most of his family wants to kill him. All right, so like it's way worse. Like it's not like his cousin could be like the next in line.
It would be like Eric Trump trying to conduct a hit on Donald Trump or Barron or whoever.
So they have the security detail on site, and they have 2 helicopter patrollings on MBS's side.
But where's the logistics of the attack on him? What's that coming from? Like, so from when we have guys on the ground shooting at the crowd, we have somebody shooting from out window in the hotel, and we have helicopters shooting. So what aspect of that is taking aim at MBS?
No. The helicopters are there to protect MBS, but when things go wrong, they start opening fire at the crowd, so MBS gets scar-free, and nobody talks about this anymore. They find the shooter, they put it in the news.
I feel like you're trying to cram it in and make it fit.
Some kind of government op.
What she said. Sorry, that's all I can
That's
bring
what I was
right
talking
now.
about.
Some kind of government op
wish.
makes sense because, like we talked about with the bump stocks, what else happened? Everything else that we talk about with these conspiracies, false flags, whatever that we can attribute to a government kind of mass psychosis thing they're trying to push on us, it's always to accomplish a goal.
Yeah.
9/11 seems to have been an inside job with a variety of factions responsible because they wanted to bolster the military-industrial complex, get us back into war in the Middle East, secure poppy fields and oil fields to bolster the
Patriot Act.
Yeah, Patriot Act for mass digital
Surveillance
surveillance.
state, yep.
We that is a very big accomplishable goal. You cannot point to anything that came out of this shooting other than, hey, they banned bump stocks for about 6 years.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that happened. So because they didn't do anything legislatively or socially about this, the only thing you can think, and at least in my opinion, the only thing you can take away from this is that they wanted it to go away as fast as they possibly could, which suggests cover-up, not conspiracy, not false flag.
Right.
They didn't want this to happen. The United States government and the Saudi government and whoever else was involved did not want this event to take place, and they wanted us to forget about it after it happened because they didn't Have you ever seen Democrats in Congress not seize on a gun incident to try to pass a gun crackdown? There was one school shooting.
No, they were
in
even
Australia.
doing about Charlie Kirk. They're celebrating his death while calling for gun reform at the same
Exactly.
time.
They will grab anything. In Australia, there was the what was the big shooting there? The port. So I'm forgetting the name of it. What happened in Australia?
Oh, Port Arthur?
Yeah, Port Arthur shooting.
Yeah, which was a false flag.
One shooting, and they rounded up all the guns in the entire continent.
Yep.
They didn't do that after this. So what was the goal?
Yeah, you don't see guys wearing never forget Mandalay Bay shirts around. You
Can
know
we
what I
make
mean?
those? I don't know if our merch department is listening. Can we make Never Forget Route 91 shooting shirts?
So, but the thing is, like, I'm wondering, did the CIA want MBS in power or the opposition in power? Because, like, does it seem like they would have been on the side of trying to take him out?
100% MBS.
Yeah, they
1000%.
So then why is there...
we've only gotten closer to the Saudis since
Right.
9/11 or since 2017.
Right. So, like, were they part of, like, the defense on this? Did they know an attack was coming? Like, why would they even let them walk into that situation if they knew it was coming? And I agree with you that this probably does have something to do with trying to take him out, but I just don't see the logistics of this attempt making sense.
But the thing is that we're thinking about rational Western business people.
This is some Game of Thrones type stuff.
But
that's
yeah,
how these people operate.
This is not how they operate.
And you have to think, and I'll let you finish that in a second, Humberto. But think about this: we talked about his rival, Prince Alawid bin Talal,
Yeah.
who is a known associate of ISIS. Mm-hmm. So ISIS tried to take credit for this. They tried to say this was us. We recruited the shooter.
Yeah.
They might have been lying about who that was, but what if they weren't lying about it being? What if Prince Ali bin Talal got some of his ISIS guys, like, hey, I'm going to put you in, we're going to get you into Vegas, go try to kill MBS. If you succeed, it was ISIS. If we fail, we'll do something else. But then the idiots in ISIS are like, hey, it was us. We did this, right?
Yeah.
And then the complicit American media says, actually, this is ISIS's first claim of a false claim of an attack on the West. Rob, I want to know if you have any thoughts on this as well.
No, it's clearly evident, in my opinion, that Stephen Paddock. There's reports that at 4:00 in the afternoon, the day of the shooting, somebody from inside of the casino called down to the front desk and reported that they heard a gunshot. That person happened to be a floor or 2 floors below Stephen Paddock, his room. The reports are, according to the work that Coop has done, as well as police reports, hotel reports, that a call was placed that afternoon that a gunshot was heard. The theory is that that gunshot was actually Stephen Paddock being killed in his hotel room to be set up for this narrative that he was a lone shooter acting by himself. It explains why there's different blood pools at the hotel crime scene. When you look at Stephen Paddock, and I looked at the death photo while we were here on the show, you can clearly see that there is what looks like stained blood, and then there looks like fresh blood. So my theory is that Stephen Paddock was killed in advance. I believe that this was an assassination attempt on MBS. Stephen Paddock was set up in case things went wrong. That was the backup plan. Whether or not our government was involved, I'm not 100% on board with right now. I lean more towards this was some type of foreign hit that was orchestrated through foreign governments on a foreign royalty, a member of royalty that went sideways, and it was easy to pin Stephen Paddock on it because Stephen Paddock was already dead. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm shocked with how this discussion has gone because, like I said, every time we do an episode, regardless of what conspiracy we're talking about, it's always left with, I guess we'll never know. I guess we'll just keep asking.
The Jews did it. It's always how it ends. Not this time, guys.
This time,
maybe.
I feel like it's
too sloppy.
We put a bow on it. Like I feel like we've actually gotten something resembling an answer based on all the available information that we put together. Countless other people have spent years researching. 8 years after the fact, I feel like we're at least pointed in the right direction now.
Yeah.
Good
job.
It's a great job. But I must say to the camera, I don't subscribe to this theory. I love Saudi Arabia, and yes, you're the
What do you
best.
mean? Like we're sticking up for the guy who's in charge now. What are you talking about? You're acting like the other guy won.
I don't know.
These things change quickly.
What happened to that guy, by the way? The guy who tried
during that corruption probe, he was arrested and held hostage in a hotel for quite a long time until he paid like a few $1 billion in ransom.
Almost the same thing that happened to Jesus Campos.
Yeah.
He was held against his will, according to reports, but instead of him paying off a debt, he was paid for being held hostage.
Yes. But the rival prince made a loyalty oath and was allowed out after he paid his ransom and still continues to own the Four Seasons.
Wow.
23.75% of the Four Seasons.
Nice.
So I think we do have to wrap because this went a little bit longer than anticipated. However, that being said, I would like to thank Connor for the hours of guys. This packet is 40 pages long. We had how many slides? 53 slides.
57.
57.
But who's counting?
Connor, if you had not done the deep dive, then today would not be possible. Thank you for going so deep and doing so much work and so much research into this. If you at home enjoyed this and you'd like us to do a once-a-month episode here on Unusual Suspects where we do a deep dive of some type of event that happened that month, right around ideally when it happened. If this is something you're interested in and you want to see more of us doing, please leave that in the comment section below. How long did it take you to put this research together?
It took a couple days, and I appreciate you thanking me for this. There's people who put far more work into it. This would not be possible without guys like them, like Coop specifically that we shouted out at the beginning. But it's not only my pleasure to do it, it's my duty. This is why we are here. This is what we do. We are trying to not only shed light on the truth here, but also bring justice to the people who were killed because of it. We lost our fellow Americans in this attack, regardless of who was responsible. So like we often say around here, let justice be done though the heavens fall. That is our obligation, to peel back as many layers of cover-ups as it takes to bring the truth to you guys and to the world at large.
Until we jeopardize that APEC check. And then we stop asking questions. But in all seriousness, 60 people lost their lives. Hundreds of people are injured. It changed. I know my best friend lived in Vegas at the time, lived in Vegas for 10 years before the shooting had happened, had friends whose lives are never going to be the same because of that night. And it's because of people like you doing the work that you did today that we're able to have a conversation about this and try and get to the bottom of it and get those people justice. So again, if you're watching at home and you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a comment in the comment section. Do you want us to do more monthly deep dives once a month on a topic that is somewhat conspiratorial in nature, and we're going to try and get to the bottom of it, or we'll just stick to the 4 episodes a month that you get of us talking bullshit about topics in the news? Either way, it's up to you guys who watched tonight. Thank you for watching us, by the way, for joining us tonight. Thank you to Connor for putting the research together. Thank you to Humberto and Brandon for joining us for commentary. Thank you to Andres, who's running the computer. Alejandra is working the computer. Alejandro is working the computer.
We also got Malik back there. We got Chad.
Julius, Chad, everybody.
All those guys who let us go
Nat
about 40
on
minutes
Minect.
over our allotted shoot time.
Yes, and thank you to Nat on Minect. Correct, 100%. Oh, we should end every show with, and thank you to Natalia at Minect. Guys, that is it for today's episode. We will be back next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Another episode of The Unusual Suspects. Until then, take care. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.